Good evening, one and all. Hope you all are doing well. We welcome you to the third event under the banner of Hackclub Educates, that is app development with Flutter, to be preceded by our speaker, Mr. Majid Hajian. His experience holds for 10 plus years of experience in developing. I am really sorry for the problem. Okay. Good evening, one and all. Hope you all are doing well. We welcome you all to the third event under the banner Hack Club Educates for the month of October. Today's event is app development with Flutter. It's a 2 days workshop to be preceded by our speaker, Mr. Majid Hajian. He holds an experience of 10 plus years in developing and architecting complex web and mobile applications. His his passion spectrum includes Flutter, PWA, and performance. We have often heard a quote that says, knowledge increases by sharing. He has always shown keen interest in sharing his knowledge with the community, either by writing, speaking, or contributing to open source. He is been organizing meetings and conferences such as Nordic conferences like GDG Oslo, Flutter Vikings, etc. He is also an award-winning author of the book Progressive Web Application, Progressive Web App with Angular, and also has a video course on PackHub and YouTube on his progressive web apps. The introduction might have spoken volumes about him, but might not have done the justice of the eminent contributions and development he has done in the genre. It is really glad that we can host you in this evening, sir. The rest evening is all up to you. Hope everyone has a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, fantastic. So hello, everyone. I'm very excited for today. Let's get it started maybe. So I'm going to share my screen. And so I have a lot to say to you today. So hopefully by end of tomorrow, you'll be a Flutter developer and you build your mobile, even web and desktop application. We'll see. So let me share my screen. So here, desktop. Okay. So I believe now you must see my screen, right?
Yeah, it's visible. It's visible.
Yeah, so let me just also have the chat open here. Very good. Sorry for, I will need to set up a little bit. And also have Dartpad here. Okay, good. So I'm gonna start. So an exciting journey today together. So we're gonna talk about Flutter. We're gonna talk about Dart and see how you can become a Flutter developer by end of tomorrow after a couple of hours having a workshop with me. So I'll try my best to give you the most essential foundation blocks that you need for being a Flutter developer. So, and I bet that by end of tomorrow, when you are creating your first app and it's ready to be deployed to App Store and Google Play, you'll be quite happy. But before we start, everyone in this room, please check this form and do me a favor, because it is very difficult to ask around 200 people right now questions. So please go to, sorry. Please go to this link. It's a survey and just answer these questions. So I need to know that where we are and how many people before we start, I need to know these questions so we prepare stuff better. So please do me a favor and go ahead and do that. I'll wait a little bit. And meanwhile, you are filling this form. It's not too many questions, just a few questions. It's anonymous, by the way. I'm not asking your name, email, or anything. I'm just asking a few questions like about your setup right now and your experience, because it's a bit important for me to know that and give you, maybe I can give you better, information and data. So once you are doing that, let's go through the slides and you just fill this form and at the same time listen to some of the first slide that I prepared for you. And I assure you that this is not a workshop that I talk. I'll get all of you to work and you have to do some stuff yourself to be familiarized with Dart and Flutter at the end of the day. So yeah, the number is going up. Thank you very much, everyone. Half of people responded, so I'll wait a little bit more. Let's get started. So have you probably have heard about Flutter, so that's why you are here, right? And you know that the main reason behind Flutter as an awesome framework right now is because it gives you a lot of flexible UI widgets, which is essentially Flutter is a UI toolkit, and it gives you a lot of information. So, a lot of widgets that you can go through and build your application very, very fast. That's why the development speed is fast. Hot reloading and all of these stuff, which we are going through that today and tomorrow. You'll get used to that, and you see that how awesome is that. You change something and you immediately see the effect. And at the end of the day, Flutter is promising to compile everything to native code, which means that you get a native performance. So it's quite fast, it's smooth. You get 60 FPS. By the way, please make sure you are muted. So thank you. All right. And also, Flutter makes you so productive, right? This is awesome. I'll show you in 2 days, like, why these reasons are amazing about Flutter, because you will feel it yourself by end of tomorrow that, wow, in just 2 days, I could create something which probably if you were a native developer or using other frameworks, perhaps it took quite longer time. And you see that how easy it is to pick up this stuff, like learning Dart, for instance. We go through it today together, for sure. So, but let me tell you what we can do with Flutter. A lot of stuff we can do with Flutter, right? Essentially, Flutter, to be in the same page, it's about creating cross-platform application for Windows, Linux, Mac, iOS, Android, web, right? And there is almost no limit. There might be some use cases that you may not use Flutter right now, but the future is so bright for Flutter. So even those use cases probably will be covered, right? Let's see some of the examples. This is an example right now, an app built by Dominic, my friend. So you get these slides and resources, no worry about this. So I'll post them to the chat later, and probably organizer can email you later. But just pay attention to this right now. So these type of like games I can actually play right now, see, with my mouse. And this is running right now in my slides live from the internet. And, you know, it's just amazing, right? So, or you probably have seen these type of, you know, apps or web apps with Flutter that you can technically like go up right now and see how smooth is that. So the animation runs exactly in 60 FPS, and so it gives you a feeling that, wow, I can. And by end of tomorrow, hopefully, you learned the essential of doing this stuff, and you go ahead and do yourself. So we're not going to talk about animation. It's a bit advanced though, but I'll show you some examples like how you can create by end of tomorrow the animation part. Those animation widgets that are built in and that you can just use them. Simple. So we'll go through that for sure. And you may have seen even these probably previously, right? So like I can do this stuff with Flutter. I can simply swap right now and create these beautiful animation, and it runs very fast and smooth. And this is actually running in the web right now. We're not going to talk about the web version of Flutter that is in today and tomorrow, but nothing stops you to compile the things that you are creating today and tomorrow to web application as well, because this is Flutter, right? So another example here is this Facebook app. You see that it's running right now in the web, and the creator of this Facebook app, it is built with Flutter. So smooth. Everything is, many of the things that you see here are just built-in material widgets, which you are going to learn today, some of them, and tomorrow another part. And you create similar things. You can just go ahead and do this stuff. And well, I told you that Flutter can even compile to like a different version. Like this is a web app, but on the mobile, you get something like that. See? So it's very smooth and very nice, so you can work with that. So these are the things that you can do with Flutter. And many of these essential widgets that you see in these screens by now, you'll learn it by tomorrow. I'm not saying that you will create the exact same thing, but you will learn all of the things that you need to create them. And then you go ahead, and once you go and read these sources, then you'll understand, oh, this is it, then I can do that, you know? So this is my goal for today and tomorrow. So let me introduce also myself. My name is Majid Hajian. I'm based in Oslo. Very quick, we had an introduction about me. I'm not going to go through the details, but one thing that I like to tell you is that I'm organizer of Flutter Vikings, which is the biggest conference for Flutter in Nordic countries. However, this year is online, and you can join from 17th to 19th of November. So it's about a month. You still have time. Go to fluttervikings.com and grab your ticket. That is free, completely free. And we're going to have a lot of fun over there. So when you learn today, the stuff that I told you, I will tell you. And by 1 month, you can join that conference and learn advanced stuff and just be an expert Flutter developer. So let's move on. What you are going to learn. I showed you some example, and I told you that I'm going to show you some of these widgets. The essential part of these examples, the widgets that they have used, you will learn it by today and tomorrow. But before that, we need to spend a little bit of time on Dart. So to get used to Dart, we need to learn the syntax and how we can write it. So that takes up maybe around an hour together. We can go through Dart and learn some basics. And then we go through the essential widgets for Flutter. So if you want to start with Flutter, you need to learn the essential ones. So I'll give you the ones that it's the most used one in Flutter application. So you go ahead and learn them. And once you start with Flutter, you just see how easily you can modify and like create what you want out of those widgets. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about routing and create a complex app with routing, passing some data from one page to another page, because, you know, our application will have a couple of pages, right? It's not like we have only one page. And then we're going to learn about fetching data. Of course, when you are building an application, probably you have a backend, you want to fetch some data, you want to serialize and deserialize and show them to screen. And I'm going to show you how you can simply manage without any complex state management stuff with the built-in stateful widget of Flutter, how you can create these applications and render and build your application based on that. So today, it's mostly foundation and the fundamentals for tomorrow's. And it is essential that you stick with me and learn all of this, which we are going to use all of them tomorrow and customize them quite heavily. So, and tomorrow we'll build another advanced stuff, and then we build an app that is going to work. We fetch some data, show some data. You'll be surprised what we are going to build. I'm not going to tell you right now. So, but Dart, let's get started. But before that, let me quickly check responses. I see that, yeah, 163 people responded, and we have 200 people on the call. So it's still 40-ish haven't responded, but it's fine. Let me quickly double check. All right, I'll share the responded with you. Have you installed Flutter SDK? And 76% yes, and still around 40% haven't installed Flutter. So please, those 40 people or 42 people, please go ahead and I'll send you one link right now. Go ahead, follow the steps, install on your machine, and make sure once I'm talking about Dart, you already installed Flutter, because in the next part of today's workshop, we need Flutter. And if you don't have Flutter installed, then it's going to be a little bit difficult for you to work on your machine. However, there is other options. You can go on CodePen and maybe a Dart pad, which I'm going to use as well. It's not a big deal, but I suggest that you install on your machine. You get used to this as well, because like basically maybe you can play with Dartpad and CodePen, but when you go to work, you really want to use your machine, right? So it's nice to have it set up. So, and for those who need the link to install Flutter, please follow.
Just a second.
Sorry?
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah. You can skip this part of installation, because we have already told them, because of the classes and stuff, they didn't find that much time to do so. So they'll do.
Yeah. I'll definitely skip that. I'll definitely skip that. But I want them to, now they have time, maybe for an hour until I go through Dart. They have time to just install it. And by the way, if it's distracting, do not do that, because we're going to use Dartpad or maybe CodePen instead. So no worries about it. Again, people said that they have not used iOS and Android. They haven't installed iOS and Android simulators. And please go ahead and also create that. Also, there is a link. I just send it here. You can follow and create that simulator if you want. It's not a big deal if you cannot, but it's fine. Okay, that's interesting. Around 50% of the responded, maybe half of us using VS Code. I'm going to use VS Code as well. I found it comfortable, so then I'm going to use that. But feel free to use whatever you want. It's no problem as long as you have your editor set up. Okay. Yeah, I see most of you are a student. That's amazing. And have you ever worked with Flutter? No, that's amazing. Very good. For those who are beginner, still you get some stuff from me today and tomorrow. So you can still stay here. And I see that many of you are Python developer. Awesome, amazing. So you know basic of programming, so I don't need to explain much. So then we immediately go through Dart and just learn the syntax for Dart. And amazing. So I'll make you Flutter developer by end of tomorrow, no worries. Some people said I want to become a Flutter developer. You'll become a Flutter developer. Oh, okay, let's get started. You pay attention to my slides. Why Dart? Flutter team has used Dart, but why Dart? The main reason behind it is that Dart is an easy language to learn, and it's quite familiar for almost all programmers who work with dynamic or static typed languages like Java or JavaScript or Python, for instance. So if you're coming from Python or JavaScript, you learn today that, okay, it's not that hard to learn it. I mean, it's quite easy. Within an hour, you learn the syntax. I'll show you how. And Dart has some fundamental that you need to know. For instance, Dart has some libraries. There has some built-in packages. You get it from like Async, Core, Math, HTML, and those libraries. I'm not going to go through all of that because it's quite easy to go through the documentation and read about them, but we'll learn about some of them right now. And it has already future and promise. If you are coming again from JavaScript and Python maybe, so you know that JavaScript actually runs in single thread. It has event loop, and it has like a promise and these type of things, right? And you may have the similar concept in Python. And Dart is similar. It has event loop, it runs in single thread, and it has stream and feature like promise and like observables and those type of things. So then if you have done even simple things with JavaScript or Python, which you've done already, so you feel comfortable within an hour with Dart. Let's get started. Some syntax. First of all, you can use, this is dartpad.dev, right? This is official pad for testing your Dart code in the browser. So I'm going to stick to this right now. I have created a repository for this workshop. I'll share that with you at the end of today. But for now, we stick to Dartpad and CodePen because many of you still, 40% of you haven't installed SDK. So if you go through this Dartpad right now, it might be way easier for us, all of us, to just give it a try right now. So what we're going to do, so I'm going to show you some examples and run it here in the browsers. So to just show you it works, you see that I wrote something here, which I'm going to tell you what it is within 10 minutes. And you see that you get the result and everything is here, very easy, right? So if you don't have Dartpad open, you may open it after I'm done with the first part of the introduction, and then you go ahead and give it a try. So that's nice. So let's, I'm gonna also share with you my slides so you can go through the slides, and after I'm done, not now, please, after I'm done, so then you can go and have a reference of what we are talking, and then you test it yourself and get familiar with that. All right. That is Dartpad. Let's move on to the first part of it. What you need to learn about Dart first is probably the types, because Dart has several different types and primitive types and optional types. So you may are familiar with that, especially if you have done some sort of like TypeScript or typed version of maybe Python or JavaScript, right? So the types are the things that helps compiler to optimize your code quite a lot. And also it makes your, like, for instance, editor gives you an intelligence, code intelligence, which means that you can easily like know that this is like maybe an integer or double or something like that, and then you don't mess with that type, you don't override it, or you get like warning if you are doing something wrong about that type. So, but what are the types? So the basic types for you need to know, and you are going to use them quite a lot, is technically numbers, which is either integer. Integer means 1, 2, 3, like this is integer, right? And or double. Double means with like 1.2, 1.3. like something like that. All right. So you have this. You have map, which is an example is like collection or like object style in JavaScript, if you are familiar with that, because many of you have done JavaScript as far as I see. So then that is quite familiar with you, even for Python developers. So, and then you're gonna have list. List is your array. So essentially you define it with two, the sign as you see. So array, you can go ahead and define your list. So this is an iterable. In Dart, we have several concepts around this list, which is iterable, and then you can convert it to list. But I'm not going to go through that to make you confused. Don't worry about it. So you'll learn the more advanced stuff when you come to programming with Dart. No worries about those details. So then you have Boolean. Boolean is true, false, of course. And then here is where you have your Boolean, and you go ahead and yes. A question is map is like dictionary. Yes, it's like dictionary. So, and then you have Boolean, as I said. You have a string. Technically, string is everything that is between two single quotation or double quotation or triple quotation, which we're going to go through that shortly after this slide. So these are the basic of the types that you need to know. So if I just copy this right now to my Dart pad, let's say here. So one thing I like to mention here is that when you create, let me just also share my VS Code so you also get familiar with coding editor a bit. Yeah, the difference between num, feel free to ask your question, by the way. Difference between num and integer is that num contains both integer and double. So if you give a variable num, it means here it can be either 12, for instance, in here example, or it can be 12.09. Both are now valid, but you cannot give 1.04 to integer. As you see here, you get an error here, and it says a value of type double cannot be assigned to a variable type integer, right? So this is the difference, but you can do that with num. So, and let's move on to double here. This is double, and if I just, you can actually have this type of number for double. It accepts it, it's fine. You can also have this. Can you give me an int in? Yeah. You can definitely give int to like integer to a num and a double to a num. Both are valid. I'll write it here for you. Yeah, I'll explain all of this right now. No worries. So yes, I'll explain all of these things right now in the screen. Just bear with me in a second. I'll explain all of them. So let's go through that though. So num here, first of all, can you confirm if this is big enough and it's visible? Just confirm. One person. Yeah, okay, good, thanks. Okay, very good. So someone asked before I asked this question, someone asked that, do I need to install Android Studio? No, if you have IntelliJ or VS Code, it's totally fine. It's good enough for you. But you need to install Android Studio anyway, because you need to create a simulator from Android Studio AVD, and Flutter also use some of the Android Studio, libraries to build your debugging app, let's say. So you need to install, but you don't need to use it. You just need to install it. All right. Let's move on to the types. First type. Num. Num can be integer or double. So I can assign 12 here or 12.9. Both are valid. That's the first thing. Let's move on to the next one. The next one is integer here. All right. You see something here that I like to now emphasize. The type are coming behind the variable. And that's the first thing now you need to learn and get used to it. So in TypeScript, how do you define, if you are a TypeScript programmer, for instance, how do you define your type? You say test, colon, and maybe number, right? And you say your number. But this is, if you just remove this colon and change number to num and move it back behind that, then it will become Dart. That's it. So, and you can even ignore num, by the way. If you don't have type, so if you add var behind that, the compiler will interpret that the first value you are assigning is interpret that this is an integer. As you see here, it says this is a top level variable and integer, right? So this is variable. This is var keyword. So if you don't want to, like, if you want compiler to just give you the first type of the variable that you assign to the variable, just use var. But it's not recommended though, right? It's not recommended. So one of the main reasons of using these type of language is that to use them to benefit from that. Because if you don't use type, then later you may get, you know, confused, or the type right now is very primitive. You just say num, but sometimes you have more advanced type. You have a class, you have an abstract class. We're gonna go through that right now. So the integer we talked, the variable we talked, and then we go to the double type, and then it says, okay, that is my double number, and then a string. Remember, it starts with S capital, and it says something here, and then the variable here between single quote or double quote or triple, and the Boolean true. List, it's just an array, like that is an array, a list of members here, just as you see here. This is a list of a string, and the way that you say, you can just simply say this is a list. You see my type here right now? I just say, yes, I can also do that. I can also open up my VS Code. Someone is asking if I can open up my VS Code. Yes, I can do that. But technically what you see here is very similar to my VS Code. No difference there. But I'll go through that as well. Sure, no problem. And if you see here, I can say now this variable is actually a list, but I can also specify that this is a list of what? This is a list of strings, for instance. So for that case, you just need to have these operators, and then between that, just say your type for the members. And here is the string. And now it says list of a string. Easy, right? And same thing for map. And what is map? Map is similar to dictionary or similar to objects like in JavaScript or so I'm not going to go through the details, but essentially how you create a map is a key value. A map has a key, and that key gives you a value. So this is what we call it map, right? And this is exactly probably similar to the dictionary. So you have a key, which is separated by a colon, and then you have a value here. For instance, my key here is, let's say key, and this is my value. And I can just go ahead and define more. And as you see here, now I have this syntax, and I have a map here. And it says my keys, these two keys, which is separating by comma, are string. And I defined it here that, okay, this is a string. This is a string in my map, and the value, because the first value is a string and the second one, now you know it's integer, I can use dynamic keyword. So dynamic means it could be anything. I don't know. Well, is it good to do that? Well, depends on the situation, yes, but if you can avoid it, have a good type, strong type, so you know that the value always gives you string, for instance, then it's better to use that. But now if I actually change to T string, this is going to be nagging by the compiler. Say, hey, you say that this is string, but then this is giving me integer, which is not correct. Can I have like dynamic? Yes, you can have dynamic. And dynamic means I don't know what the key type is, and I don't know what the value type is. You can essentially do that. And the difference between, well, the dynamic keyword is a type, right? It's a type, and it just says that I don't know. It could be any type, primitive type. But the var, difference between var is just saying that I'm defining a variable, which please compiler, go ahead and assign a type behind the scenes, because I'm assigning some value to that, and it could maybe even be override. So now I can actually now remove this here and have dynamic here, and I can even have var dynamic. Here it's not possible, right? Because I said that variable cannot be declared for both var and dynamic. So you need to have either this or that. All right, these are the essential of the types. So now you are somehow get used to it. So the type, two things you need to learn right now from me, because you see that quite a lot. First, the types come before the variable. So that's first thing. And that's before any object, actually. It could be function and anything else. It comes before that. And then you're going to have, sorry. You're going to have primitive types before that. And if you have more complex types like list and maps, which have members and key values, then you can also define it by those operator and say which type has this here. For instance, here, if someone asks that, can I have list dynamic? Yeah, of course you can have list dynamic, and that means it could be the string and one, both is valid right now. But then this is how you can define it, right? All right, let's move on to, we're going to talk about abstract in Java. Please bear with me. We're going to talk about that. Let's bear with me, please. These are just types right now. Let's move on. So now you know the basic of the types, right? I told you that string in, let's go back. I told you that a string in Dart start with this quotation, or a single quotation or double quotation, right? But if you want to have multi-line string, so now actually I cannot have like this. It all be interpreted as a one line. So you see that I get an error here. But if you want to have like multi-line screen, then Dart has a very special operator here, so that you can use triple single quotation like that, and then you can define your string. Let's move on and define it here. If you, okay, let me just print this to the console and you see what's the difference. To print something to the console to check it out, you need to have Oh, sorry, it's just printed by itself. Okay. Oh, yes, good that I should tell you this as well. But let's first go through that. So with triple single quotation, then you can have these multi-line string. So to run that, one tip for you right now. Dart, to run Dart file, you need to have a main function on top of everything. And that's exactly what you see for the first time when you come to Flutter. So it's a main function, and then you just have everything there, and then you can have S2 here. And now if I run it, then it prints it to the console. And as you see, it's multi-line because I used it that way. And if I have another type of a string, let's say just what single quotation, let's print out once more. And you see the difference now. Well, this is a browser editor, so it's nagging about. Don't worry about those errors, please. Just stick with me what I'm saying. Don't worry about the distractions. I'm going to move on to my VS Code shortly, so then you also get familiar how you can run these functions in your editor and your terminal. But then now you get toString here, multi-line, and single line. But then one more thing that is important, why I'm telling you, because you're going to use this in Flutter quite a lot. So in Dart, you can have what we call it a string interpolation. What does that mean? That means that you can define a variable, and then if you want to evaluate that variable in a string like that, you just use this dollar behind that variable, and that will be evaluated. And the value will become here. So I'm gonna give you this example right now. Let's remove that. And let's print this too. So yeah, my name. You see that my name now is, yeah, this can be actually string, totally fine, yes. My name is now a variable string, and it's this name, right? And then I have one string, I want to use this variable inside this text, so I simply use the variable, and then I just add a dollar behind that. So simple. Then it will be evaluated here. Let's call it. Then you see that what I see in the console is my full name plus the text that is already there. That's very good. So, and if you want to have a chain function on that variable, or if this is an object and you want to get access to the children and the keys, then you can not do like this. You need to define your interpolation within curly braces like that. If it's more than one thing with your variable, you need to have this syntax, dollar and curly braces, and then you need to have what you want. And here is where I said, just make it to uppercase. So this is how we interpolate values within text. And you will use this one line and multiple line in Flutter quite a lot. So that's why I'm telling you right now, and you're going to use it quite a lot. Let's move on to the next one, and then I'll give you a little bit break to go through your editor or Dartpad just for 5 minutes. Give it a try. run something. If you have any question, then ask. Otherwise, we move on to my editor from instead of Dartpad, and then we move on. So conditions. Conditions are very important when it comes to programming. If you have done, which most of you have done programming, you know that conditions are pretty important. So like if that, do this, else do that, you know, these type of things. So the conditions must be Boolean. They must be interpolated as Boolean, right? So let's move on and have this example. Again, I'm gonna actually do this to the main. Let's remove that. Maybe format it. Okay. So I'm now having a Boolean here, and I just defined it. That's it. And I said this is my variable, has value. This is a Boolean, and the value is true. And when you want to have a condition similar to other languages, just if your a condition and then curly braces and what you want to do here. This is what you want to do, right? So it says if it's true, just print this. Otherwise, nothing. You can also say else like that and do this, for instance. And this is how it works, like similar to other languages. So I'm not gonna speak more than that on this. So let's move on and then print this out. You can also have, instead of Boolean, maybe this is string, okay. But then when it comes to condition, you need to, for sure, you need to have something here that can be evaluated as Boolean. For instance, here, I said, if my variable is not null, how you define is not? Okay, in Dart, it's exclamation mark and equal. That means the left is not equal to the right. And then if it's true, it will be true. If it's not true, it will be false. For instance, if I remove my name right now, now this doesn't have, the name doesn't have value. And when it doesn't have value, that means it's null. So then if I run, then I don't see the second line anymore because it's null. And this one, it's going to be evaluated as false. But how you can say the other way around, how you can say if it's equal to, then you just remove exclamation mark and then add one equal. So 2 equal means the left is equal to the right, and then it makes it Boolean for you. And now it will be printed right now. So if I just do that. Yes. One good question someone asked, and I actually deliberately didn't talk about it because I want to see how many of you are paying attention to these codes. Very good question, and thanks from the person who is asking. It says, these semicolons, do we have to add them? When you are coming from Python and JavaScript, and maybe TypeScript, which most of you are coming from that, it's for those languages, it's not mandatory. But for Dart, it is mandatory. I'm not able to just remove that. My compiler will say this something is wrong. So having this semicolon at the end of everything that is going to be done, it is important. It's going to every line that is going to be finished. So it's similar to maybe Java or C++ if you have done that. And yes, so that is important. And as you see here, now it's evaluated as that. Let me just write my name again, run it, and then you see that it's going away. Very good. One use cases of this is that when something is null, and if you are interpolated here as an example, if it's null and you interpolate it, your application will throw error because there is nothing for that, but you're asking for something. So that's not correct. So it's good to have this type of check for instance. So then you say, okay, whenever I have a value, just interpolate it or evaluate it. So otherwise, don't do that. All right, very good. The next one is list array, but I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna go through that. I give you my slide. I already sent it. I'll send it one more time. So the first 3 slides, 5 minutes, please. 5 minutes. Just go through this basic and quickly see if you remember that you need to write main function, you need to write something here, define something, and then print something to the console and click run. Just in 5 minutes. So go ahead and do it 5 minutes and share with me if you have any question or anything that is wrong and you want to know. Meanwhile, I'm going to open up my editor in another screen here so I can continue on that. So please go ahead, do it, and let me know in the chat if you have any question. One question from organizer though. Can someone speak to me? If they want, they can speak or not, or they have to just write?
They can speak to you. We have allowed access for unmute. I'm not sure if they will unmute or not, but guys, you can
no problem. I just wanted to know if
Yep, but if you want, do you want me to allow them to unmute themselves, or should I disable the unmute?
Well, it's up to you. I don't mind if someone can. Maybe they can raise their hand and maybe I don't know how it works. It's totally up to you.
I mean, we have no issues. We have allowed it anyways, but yep. If anybody wants, you can unmute yourself and ask questions as well.
Yes, someone is asking that. Let me just maybe do that. I can explain about it. I cannot just simply copy and paste, sorry, but you're saying that to answer your question, you're saying that you have a main function and you're a string, and a string is null. You explicitly say null, and then you say print my name is something, right? And that is not going to work because you are saying that your variable is null. And if you are going to evaluate null, then your compiler, the compiler will throw an error. So you should say a string s1 equal to your name, like with quotation, and then go ahead and use that. Or you use Boolean. You say a string isn't equal to null, and then have print. Then it's gonna work for you. I have a Visual Studio Code Git, but I don't know how to install. By the way, it's gonna show the null, of course, but if you have like, I'll show you later about the map, and if you have like a chain, when something is null, then it's gonna throw an error. Sorry that if I actually didn't say that correctly. And yes, so I'll show you about the short operator, how you can define, how you can actually recognize these null things later. So, but just bear with me. I know some of you know probably Dart, but bear with me. I'll share everything with you. Yes, why do we need the dollar sign? The reason is that $sign say to compiler that I have a variable and I want to evaluate it. And instead of the variable, I want to use the value of that. As an example, as you see that, my name assigned to a variable, and when you say $my name, then it gives you the value, which was the string of my name. That's the reason you have to use that. Yes, we go through a map. Please bear with me. Don't worry. We go through map in 4, maybe two slides more. Yes, that's correct for C++. And how to access a slide? I'm unable to access. I am not sure why are you unable. It is online and not sure why. I can double check. Can one of organizers check if slides is working?
Yep, just give me a sec.
Okay, it says, do we have array and list as a separate collection as in Java, or they both? We have in Dart iterables, and we have list and collections and maps and dictionary. These are a bit different. So bear with me, I'll tell you more about it.
Yes, it's working perfectly.
Okay. Can we, or those who have a problem with the slides, please consult with these organizers. Maybe they can help you.
Yes.
Is Dart case sensitive? Dart, yes, it is. It isn't the normal PPT. I'm not sure the question, actually, sorry. Suggest a book. I'll at the end of the tomorrow, I'll suggest some more resources. Don't worry about it. It's not a big problem for now. All right, let's maybe move on to another. Let me just quickly. Open up my editor. Well, sorry, a couple of questions here. And last question is, could you suggest book? I think I answered that, right? And what is the difference between, var and dynamic? Oh, okay. Maybe I should give more example here. Let's have, can you see my screen? Let's go through that. And if you say right now, for instance, dynamic x equal 1, like, or something, then later here, you can do that. Let's see here what's going on. Dynamic. Okay. And let me just remove that. Then let's print this. Let's format it. Okay. Let me just quickly again explain here if someone has a still misunderstanding. So now I have dynamic here, and it says this is now it's interpreted as string, right? And if I come here and say this line, then I can actually run this, and you see 1. See, When I say the type is dynamic, you can change this value to anything else later, right? I just define it. But let's move on and say var y equal to something. And now let's print y. Maybe with example, that will be, that helps you better. Now I have something, right? And if I now come here and say y equal 1, let's see what you see. It says a value of type integer cannot be assigned to variable of type string. So if you have var, then the first, you cannot change that to the different things later. So this is how is the difference between these two. Perhaps that helps you to understand better. Indentation. Okay. Indentation. Yeah, that's a good question. Many of you are coming from Python, and probably indentation is important, but in Dart it's not important. So it's really not important. Nothing is pointless, but bear with me when you learn more keywords like final, like const, I'll tell you, and then you see the difference, and then you see where you have to use them. But to be honest, maybe the last 3 years when I work with Dart, I have never used var, probably. And maybe you're right. So, yes, let's move on. I think if I answer just question, then it's that we will run out of the time. We need to finish this part by around my time 6, around 45 minutes more. So I have still a lot of stuff to tell you. Let me just again continue on that. My editor has some problem running Dart at the moment. I mean, my machine has some problem. I'll fix it in the next break. Let's move on to the slides and let's go through array. Yes, when we say list, we're talking about arrays, right? So it's probably more familiar with you when you say list or array. Let's have some example. How can you create list in Dart? You have two options. So the first option is that you say, like, let's say example here. And my example is that you can use this syntax, which is very similar to other languages if you are coming from other languages. And then you go ahead and define your member here, right? This is how you can define your list. Or you want to be a good Dart programmer, just assign a type as well here. So now I have a list here. So I can actually print my list, and you see what is going to be printed in this console like. So, and you have another option to create list, and maybe this is something that you will also face in Flutter later, is that you can go ahead and say the same thing here. I say y, and then you have actually list class constructor, which is going to accept, either accept a value here, or it doesn't. For instance, if I say now 2 as the initial value, let's just do that and print y, and it's going to show you a list with only number, sorry, this is not necessary. So that is going to show you 2 spaces, right? So let's do that. It says list 2, and it gives you 2 null spaces, and then you can add your value over there. Let's see how you can do that. That is also important for you to learn it. So let me just remove or comment this here. Let's go for that. Okay, now I have 2 positions available in my list or array that I can assign. But by default, you see it's null. So a list constructor is good when you know how many items you want in an array. Like if you want 10 members or more or less, for instance. And how you can assign, it's easy. You can say just with other, similar to other languages, Dart list or arrays are 0 index, which means the first member, this one, if you want to get access to that, you need to pass 0, and then you get access to that. And then once you say list 0 here in this case, you can assign a variable to that, for instance. So sorry, this is not list, this is y. And if I now print, the first variable or first member of my list become 2. For let's guess what is how I can add the second one. The second one becomes 1, right? So I'll just say member number 1 and go ahead, and then you're gonna have 2 and 2 after that. This is one way of creating your list. Another way, let me just comment that. You also have these also here, no worries about that. Another that is when you are going to have, and this is quite common again, let me have a list, or let's say maybe m equal to an empty array. And once you want to add a member here, I just say this is a var. What you can do, let's print out m. You can actually use chain method with dot. And that means m, there is a method on array. If you click, you get a list here. These are all the things that you can do on list in Dart. Are we going through all of them? Not now, but in Dart, in Flutter, we go through some of them. And you learn some of them where it's necessary. And for now, the first thing that you need to learn is add method. So add method help you to add one member to your list. And if you see here right now, I'm going to print m, and then it shows me 1 here. In Dart, that is also important because in Flutter you see it quite often, is that you can chain these methods. I can say either this 2. Let me just quickly do that. And you see 1, 1, or it's a bit slow here. I'll definitely run my editor, so that's faster. Or I remove that, and then I can have chain. That's almost equivalent. That's equivalent. So you can sorry. Let's cascade it. I'll explain what is cascade. So this dot is cascading. And cascading means that you can call that function without without being worried about the return of the result. And then you just add your value, for instance, here in this case, to that list. This is how it works. All right. You will see this cascading in Flutter quite often. So, and that means, okay, I have a, so this one doesn't bother this, and then it's similar to this. So instead of doing that, you can cascade them like that, and it's going to print the same thing for you. So this is also, again, important. I wanted to tell you because you are going to use them in Flutter as well. Let's move on. Yeah, I think I answered some of these questions. I'll go through. Can we add an item to array? Yes, you can. You see that I did. Someone also asked how I can comment in Flutter in Dart. You see, double backslash. You can just it just comments your line, like you see here. Just with this, you can uncomment or comment. That's your answer. You see it right now. And else if in Dart, how text input from user. Well, wait. So we're gonna talk about Flutter after. You just learned Dart right now. let's move on to the next one, functions. So perhaps functions are very important when it comes to programming, right? And in Dart, how you define a function, you define a function like this syntax. You name your function, parentheses, and curly braces. This is how you define the scope of a function in Dart. So let's move on and create a function here. So I want to create a function called print my name, and that I want to then print something here, or let's say this. So as you see now, I have a function, and if I run this, it doesn't do anything because I don't call my function. The way that you call your function, you just later use parentheses for your function, and it's going to be called, and now you see something in the screen. So here we go.
The function inside the
So, sorry, I didn't hear what you say.
we create the function inside the main function or outside the main?
Yes. Well, I can create that outside of the main function. It's not a problem. But then if I want Dart to execute everything, it must be inside main function. So main tells Dart that to run something here. So if I just go ahead and do this, now it doesn't do anything. It just says this is something is wrong. But when I go there and do that, then it will be executed. So in Dart, as I mentioned earlier, then you're gonna have main function on each file. When you want to execute something, you need to put everything inside that main function. So maybe in your program, and you'll see it in Flutter later, you will have only one main function in one file, and everything will be executed from there. So you don't need to actually create like main every time that you want to do something. We'll get to that in Flutter. So no, we don't require anything. You see that? Nothing. I just define my function, simple, and I call it, and that's it. So how can you define a type? A function is similar to other variables, like it's an object, right? So I can just assign a type before the function. But when I say before the function, then that means the return value of this function is something. So at the moment, this function doesn't have return value. It doesn't return anything. Therefore, learn this right now. Void means it doesn't have return value. But when I say here return Majid, then it returns a string. And what is nagging right now? If you read, it says, oh, you're returning a string, but you said you don't return anything. Oh, sorry. I return a string instead. Similar to what you learn right now. And you see this in Flutter quite a lot again. You see that I'm saying everything that you see in an hour in Flutter as well. So you need to know them. When you come to the Flutter, you are comfortable with the language. So, and of course, I remove the here, and then it returns something, right? So I can print this function here, and then it's showing the same thing because this is returning in a string, and I can return the value. Right. Very good. Let's move on to how you can pass something to function. Like, you can say that I want to say hello name. I want to pass something to this function, and then here in function, like similar to other programming, luckily you have done that, you can just pass an parameter and then or argument, and then you can just evaluate it. So therefore here now it requires me to pass something, and it must be a string. So I pass it here. And I also say here, look at this right now. I want to say this argument is a string. How I should do that? We talked about it, right? Right before. Sorry. Yes. So now it says it returns a string, but it accepts a string and it returns this. And if I now run this, it says hello Majid. So this is quite common. You see that. Two more things here. Let's move on to here. I'll explain it here because I want you to see what I'm doing. But then later, when I give you time, you go to my slide and you do the same thing. Now I am actually passing one argument. And if I want to pass more argument, I can say, colon, not colon, sorry, comma. And then you go ahead and define another one. Let's say I want to say integer age. So here, when you have these type of argument, your compiler said, hey, these are required. You need to pass them. You cannot say these are null. So here, this function is expecting 2 arguments, but you are sending 1. And the next one you need to send. Otherwise, the compiler threw an error. And here I can say age, for instance, 35. Right? Now I can say, I can even evaluate it here. But well, returning the value of the function, good question. It says 2 arguments needs to return values. Well, you can accept too many arguments, but you don't need to return them. Maybe you want to do something with them and you return something else. It really doesn't matter. So return and accepting 2 arguments is two different things. Is a function returning a value, then the return value has to be stored in main function to do further processing in my, well, main function, okay, if I just move this to here, or later, if I create a file, move it there and import it here, it really doesn't matter. If you want to tell Dart to execute this function, you need to have main function and just execute your function over there. So main function just tell Dart compiler to run everything between main. Everything is here, please execute. That's it. It doesn't matter where you define this. Hopefully I
hi sir, am I audible?
Need to give... Yes.
Sir, I was the one who posted that return value question. So sir, my doubt was like in our main function as of now, we are actually using the print my name user defined function inside print, correct? So suppose if we don't want to use that inside a print statement.
Yes, that's correct, like this.
Yes, sir. My question was like that.
Yes, you can do that.
Okay, sir.
And also very good question. You can, in Dart, very good question. Everything is an object, so you can pass them to different functions. So you can pass a function to another function, but you can also assign it to a variable and then pass it to function. Both is the same. You can do that.
Okay.
And maybe this is even better. It's the syntax wise, it's cleaner, of course. So thank you for asking this, and thanks for also helping me to answer it. By the way, let's move on. So now the arguments here are mandatory. But if you look at my function right now, my function just has 2 arguments, but I don't know what is what. I need to go and look at them or ask compiler what is the first one and what is the second one, right? You can just do a simple change in this function and make it a little bit more verbose. Let's see how. For instance, isn't it nicer if I say here name is this and age is this? Isn't it nicer? So at least I know that name is going to be this and this. So if you want to do that in a function, what you need to do is, let me just remove that. And you need to have a curly braces here and just paste the same thing. This is what we call it name parameters. We also have positional parameters, which I'm going to explain right now. Let's digest it a bit, because you see this, actually, this is one of the main fundamentals of Dart. So you see it everywhere in Flutter, everywhere. So one example was that, let me just copy this here. This editor is crazy. Let's just compare it. This is going to be named parameters. Named parameters are using curly braces in arguments and then define what you want to be named as that argument. And then later, when you want to call this function, let me just remove that. Okay. Then if I just come here and say n, it will just tell me that I can pass a name here. And then I can say, okay, my name is blah, blah, and age, my name is, age is whatever, for instance. So this is more verbose. This is more, and then you see it in Flutter everywhere. You use a widget and you have these named arguments and parameters everywhere. And so you say and your editor also helps you to realize what is what, and you can simply call them and then assign something to that. This is named parameters. But then another option is, let me just remove this one more time. This is a very crazy. Let me just go to, yeah. So another option, this was the first option, right? Another option is that you can have positional parameters. And for positional, what is the difference between named and positional and none of having as a normal argument? The difference is that in positional, the argument is not required, and also in named, so you can just skip them. But when you have an argument like that, this is required. So if I go back to my previous slide, you see that if I want to say this named argument to be required, I need to use some kind of annotation. Okay, you learn something again right now. Something that starts with @ in Dart, we call it annotation. And annotation means compiler will know something about it. Like now we know that named is going to be required. So if you don't pass name, like for instance here in this example, so your compiler will say, hey, you forgot name. You need to pass name as well. And you should say name ... something. All right. So these are the options that we have for positional, named, and like regular argument that you pass. Remember, for required, you need to also import them from a package called meta. So I'm going to show you when we go to Flutter how you can do that. But don't worry about it right now. Just try to familiarize yourself with the syntax, because I like you to know this right now. I don't want you to write the best Dart code ever. I just want you to be familiarized with Dart. And when we go to Flutter, so you know what are these stuff. So I'm going to give you a 5-minute time again, because I think we covered a couple of stuff right now. We covered list. Just don't worry about list. List is easy. Many of you know. Function is probably easy, but go through the function and then go through positional and go through the named as well as normal argument, and just give it a try in 5 minutes very quickly. Meanwhile, I can ask, I can answer questions. Please give it a try, and then we move on to next one. Okay. Can you explain about name parameters again? Yes. If you want to have name parameters, means that instead of passing just an argument or parameter to a function or to a class, you can say that you can give a name to that and say, I want to pass this value, but to this variable, and then to this parameter, sorry. So you say a name, you give a name to the parameters. How you can do that? With those curly braces that I just showed you, and you find it also in the slides. So when you do that, then you cannot just pass a value. You need to say this value is for what parameters. You need to say this is for instance, name, and then, pass your value. I hope that it answers your question. Okay, good. The parameter used in function should be same as what is called in the main function, right? Well, don't get confused about main function. Main function doesn't do anything. Main function is just there to execute what you write between those curly braces, and that's it. Don't get confused about it. So we're defining our function differently, and main function is just say that, okay, I want to execute this, whatever is between this in main function. Is there anything similar to quarks in Art? You mean the arguments, perhaps? I'm not sure what quark is, or I may have misunderstood it. The parameter should, yeah, that is keywords argument. The keywords argument is similar to the positional one, right? So you have like a keyword for your argument. That's the name of that, and then you pass your value to that.
Is overloading possible?
The main function doesn't have return, so you don't need to return from main function. Usually main function is void. Most of the time is void. It's void because it doesn't do anything. It just says compiler to run this code, and that's it. Yes, one more time I can explain positional parameters, but when I say that classes. So the next thing I want to say is classes. So, and then we're going to go through that, and then you learn classes as well. And then in that classes, I'll tell you how you can have now parameters in classes as a positional parameters. Just give me maybe 5 or 10 more minutes. What is the difference in process and output for named and position? Okay, the difference is the name parameters are just they just have like they don't need to have like a specific position in the function when you want to pass them. You can just say name and value everywhere. Doesn't matter if it comes first or last, right? But when you have positional, it's important to pass them as the order that they have. Like for instance, in one of the example here in the slides, let's go back. This is an example here. Look at this example who you are asking about positional. So I have now this one and then a positional one. A positional one is similar to like the list or making an array, right? So you need to definitely first is bold first and then name second. And then you can say name is something. This is very important to do that. But when you have named like that, it really doesn't matter. You can say first name, second is Boolean, or different. That is the difference. At least the main difference. Okay. Yes, required syntax. It's required as an annotation. Yes, it's a syntax, as you said, and it makes it tells the compiler that the next variable, which I'm going to define or pass or parameters, let's say parameters in this case, it's mandatory to pass, because when you have named, they are not mandatory; they are optional. Right? So if you say required, then it's you cannot ignore that named parameters. You have to pass it. Otherwise, compiler threw an error and say, hey, sorry, you have to pass this. Okay, very good. I think I answered all of the questions. Let's move on. We have 10 more minutes, and then I'm also almost done with Dart. So next, after the short break, we will go through Flutter, and then we start our first Flutter app. I'll promise you I'll start in my editor for sure this time. All right. Loop in Flutter, you can have several different type of loops, and you can use either functions on the list, like for each or map, for instance, or you can use for keyword, or a normal for keyword is like that, or you can use for in, which is again similar to all of the your languages that you worked with already. So not going to go through that because it's necessary, but its syntax is very simple. It's nothing special here. I just wanted to mention that also you can do that. But maybe this is important. In Dart, we're going to have, let's move on and copy that. For okay. Couple of good things right now in this syntax, which I want you to pay attention right now because you see it very often in Flutter. First of all, again, this is similar to Python and maybe ES6 version of JavaScript or TypeScript, let's say. So you need to import libraries to get access to the function that they exposed or the classes that they exposed, right? Or like if I want to say it in JavaScript word, they export something and you need to import them, right? So in Dart, so technically what you define in the root level, it's going to be automatically exposed unless you tell that I don't want to do that, right? So how you import libraries, it's very simple. Import syntax, and then here is where you are saying which library you want to import. In this case, I'm just importing Dart from Dart.io library, for instance. And that gives me these exceptions, which you see here. But exceptions, there is no program that you write and it doesn't have exception. All the programs, for sure, they have errors and exceptions. So to try to avoid your app crashing, so you need to use try and catch. Try and catch. A normal syntax, like a very, very simple one, is try. I'll show you. And catch with error. This is a simple format. So let me format it. So in try, you write what you want to do, and in catch, you catch the error or maybe print the error, for instance. So if anything happens in try catch, in try, any exception, any problem, any error happens, then it goes to catch. So, but why do you need to use that? Because if you don't do that, and if there is an exception like this one, your app stops working. So you need to handle these errors. This is what we say error handling. This is a very simple version of that for sure. There are different ways, but essentially this is where when you try something and if there is no error, it moves on. But if there is any error, it just goes to the next line, which is catch error. Anything, anywhere, like if you have 100 lines in try, and if it runs an error or through an error exception in line 450, it doesn't run the rest and it goes to catch. So yes, in Python, maybe it's try and accept, or in JavaScript, it's similar, try and catch. Many languages are similar. So this is similar, right? So you go ahead and write this in Dart as well. But what we can do here, here's an example. Here's where I threw an exception, and exceptions goes to here. And now I can print my error. Let me just run this. So by doing this, my application doesn't break. But if I just threw an error in main, it breaks. It doesn't work afterwards. I'm not going to do that right now, so you can give it a try later. But you see, and also what I pass to exception, I get it in the error, and I know what type of error I have, right? But what I want you to know is that maybe this is a bit different from the languages that you work with, and it's on different exceptions, because Dart gives you several different exceptions. I'm not going to talk about several different exceptions, but I'm going to show you the format or the syntax that you can listen to those exceptions. An example is on socket exception. Socket exception means a problem is with internet. So maybe you don't have internet and you want to call a method, a server or backend, and then because you don't have internet, then it's a socket exception, right? If that happens, you can do something special here. You can listen, and the way that you can listen to this exception is with on keyword. You say try, and then instead of catch always can be the last part, and before that, you can listen to this exception and do something specifically for internet. For instance, an example, you can send a message to your user and say, hey, you don't have internet, sorry, and you make the app gray or header gray because it's a socket exception, no internet. And for other exceptions, you can do the similar things. This is quite useful when it comes to error handling and show a proper message according to that. But if you don't catch none of them, then it goes to catch, and then it shows you something. Then you can do that. You can say, oh, sorry, we don't know what's going on, so we're trying to investigate, or something like that. And last but not least, you also have finally, which is quite good for cleanup stuff. Like if you have a listener on some streams or observable, it's quite handy to work with them and unsubscribe on that or do something which is going to be messy. Yes, like exception is like dinosaur game. Yes, correct. All right. Exactly. Actually, they get that exception. It's a good point. And then they show that to you and say, yeah, okay, you don't have internet. Meanwhile, you can play this. This is exactly what's going on. That's true. All right. Exceptions is important. So I told you. And then let's move on. And now it's the most important part, but maybe. And then we need to talk about it. So I don't need that. I can remove. I can remove actually everything. Object-oriented programming. Dart is an object-oriented programming. It is very broad to explain what is object-oriented programming. this workshop is not about that. I'm not gonna go through the details of that. My goal is to teach you the basic of object-oriented programming, and you learn the syntax that you will see in an hour or in a 30 minutes in Flutter. My goal is to show you that. That is important for me. So in object-oriented programming, you have classes which defines objects, right? So technically what you can do, you have class keyword, and then it starts with a capital letter and a name. For instance, I can say user. And then you have curly braces, and that defines now an object. If I now define my main again, because when I print something, I need to say that in between the main function, otherwise it doesn't print, right? So then if I run now, it says, look at this, it says user, and user is just an instance. It's nothing, it's an object. You can do something like that. For instance, you can define a local variable here. It can be name equal to a default. And I need to say this is a string. Here you go. And now I can go ahead to also do the things that our friends said. I can create an instance of this class. What does that mean? Okay, bear with me in a minute. I can say user1, and I can create that user1 here. And I'm going to use this user1 here. So now if I print, let's see what it says. It'll tell you this is an instance of user, which means that I can reuse this class to instantiate several instances. And it's quite useful when it comes to inheritance, when it comes to type, when it comes to many things. Let me give you an example. What if you want to have this name instead of hard-coded here? What if you want to pass it here? And I use one of your name, Rahul. But now it's nagging, because when you want to do that, learn this right now. You need a constructor. You need to tell to Dart that I want to create and assign this variable, which I'm passing as a parameter, to a name. All right. So how I can do that is simple. Use the name that you used for class, and then have this, and then the variable that you defined. Simple. That means what I pass here, it's going to be assigned to this, and later I can say name. Let's have a look at that. Now I have Majid, and if I call this in the second user, that is very similar to Java, yes. And constructor is exactly the name as the class. So the first instance and the second instance, they are using both one class, but they have different names. So very good. But how can someone right now tell me, like, quickly, just raise your hand maybe and tell it, how I can actually make this a little bit more better. Like now I'm just passing name, but I just want to say name is Majid, for instance, because I may have more variable to pass or parameters to pass to this constructor. Yes, that's correct. Use braces. And now I just use braces, and here I can say name is Majid. That's it. So if later I define H here, as an integer, what I can do here, I can say this dot age, and now I can also come and say age is yes, name parameters, and age is, I don't know, maybe you are 20, Rahul, I don't know. And this is comma. And now I created an instance so I can actually go ahead and let's use all of the things that we learned right now. I want to interpret like this. So name is this, and age is this. Let's have a look at that for user 2. Here you go. So you are now creating a class which is going to have two property, and that is name and age, and you can pass them via constructor and then assign it. So now these two, I can actually remove var right now and say the type is user and the type is user. The same thing here. So this is very useful when now you want to create different classes. In Flutter, you'll see the exact use case with the same thing that I just told you, and you see how you can inherit from other widgets. Because you can have a user, and then you define another class which can inherit from this class, which we will get to that in Flutter instead of here, because it's too much things to explain in Dart. I don't want to do that. So how about private and public? Some people are asking, in case you don't know. By default, if you go this way, it's all public. That means you can access these class and those properties directly here. But if I just change this to underline name and here to underline, then it becomes private. Then see, it says you cannot do that. This is a private field. I'm sorry. So you need to fix that. So then you have to have getter and setter and things like that, but don't worry about it. That's not important because you're not going to have too much depth right now in classes. I would just want you to be familiar with this syntax because this is exactly what you're going to see. And last thing in class, and the last thing for this time, is how you can define a method. So you can define a method like, what is method? If you have a function inside a class, that is method. So I can say print name or greeting. I've seen examples, right? So now I can return, look at this here. Hello, name, your age is age. And that is returning in a string, right? All good. What I can do right now is, instead of doing this, I can just go ahead and say user2 dot greeting, and same here. And when I call this, yes, you can use, let me just show you this and I'll answer your question. So now you see the same thing that I see here. Without accessing these names and age, I can just simply do that because these are now a property of these classes. This is the basic of what you need to learn about Dart. The syntax now is much more familiar. I'm not expecting you to become an expert right now. I'm expecting even to forget some of these things when we go to Flutter, because now suddenly we go to Flutter and then some stuff is a bit different. Don't worry about that. I'll promise you by end of tomorrow, even by end of today, you become very, very familiar with Dart and we're comfortable with Flutter. You can simply write everything that you want. Don't worry about it. And about object-oriented programming, for sure, you're going to learn as you go. I believe in this method. I don't want you to just give you a lot of information right now. I just want you to explore, right? And then as time goes, then you learn more and more and more, and you understand why I should do that, why. So some of the whys I can answer, but some of them are just a bit advanced, and it needs your experience. You need to experience with that. I want you to become just familiar with the syntax, which is important. Someone just 2 questions, and then I think organizer can confirm. We can go for a little bit of break, so I can at least go and grab something, grab a coffee or something. So I need a little bit water, I think. And then we will back to the Flutter section, the exciting part, for sure. And the question is, when are we creating classes, and when are we going to use class-defined data type? So almost in Dart, you use it every minute, every second, every time. So everything is a class. Everything is a class that you need to define with the properties, method, and things like that. So when you want to go and create like instances of classes and define some properties like models and things like that, and widgets in Flutter, then this is the time that you're going to create classes. Bear with me, in 15 minutes, we'll go through that, and you see exactly the same thing that I just told you in the real Flutter application. And a question was, can we use positional parameters and named parameters together? You can do that, yes, of course. I think so, and I know. Overread, let's not talk about it. Let's talk about overread when we come to Flutter. I'll explain over there. I think it makes more sense then. Can we have protected? No private public. So what about constructor in Dart? I mean, I explained. Constructor in Dart they don't have the name as constructor. The name of constructors are the name of class. That's the constructor. How to get input from user? I'm not sure what you mean exactly, how to get input from user, but in Flutter, we're going to build an application which has an input. User can type and you get an input. So you get to you see that tomorrow. And can we use else if in Dart? If, else if. Yes. If, else if, else. Yes, you can do that. If you are familiar with else if syntax, you definitely can do that. Yes. Some tips, small tips and tricks, short version of the syntax and things like that, I'll tell you in Flutter. So far, you are now ready to move on to Flutter. And now when you go to Flutter, you are not like a stranger. You are not like an alien to Flutter. Oh, what is this? Now you at least going to understand 80%, and I'll tell you that 20% more of the syntax over there. And then we're gonna write our widgets. We're gonna go to that. No, there is no such a thing, deconstructor. Let's have a little bit of break. Organizer or my moderator, is that possible?
Yeah, you can. We can leave for a break right now, and for maybe 15 minutes we can leave for a break, and we'll be back. We'll be back in like 10 minutes. We are all here in the guys. Please do not leave the Zoom call.
No, do not leave the Zoom, please. Yes.
Yes.
And stay with me. Actually, the next part is very important. I'm going to tell you the essential part of Flutter widgets. If you don't miss it, you're not going to learn anything tomorrow. So please stay with me. Do not leave the call. I just want to mute myself, and I'll come back in less than 5 minutes again here, and I'll be here if you have any question later. Don't worry about it. But we will start in 15, let's say 10 minutes. Is that possible?
Yep. Yeah, I think let's say 10 minutes of break is fine. It's
yes.
Perfect.
In 10 minutes, I'll see you again. Don't leave Zoom.
Guys, please don't leave. Okay, so while we are on a break, if anybody has any questions, you guys can unmute yourself and ask.
Yes, please.
We'll answer these. We'll answer a few questions.
I didn't get the try, catch, and finally part. Could you please repeat that?
Yes, absolutely. Let's move on to the slide. Can we?
Do you want us to clear the doubts if you want a break, Majid, or
Sorry,
is
I
it
didn't
fine?
answer what did you say?
If you want a 5 minutes break, you can just take a 5 minutes break. We have Aman here. He might be able to clear a few doubts if you need a break. That is.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I just want to grab a tea or something.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
it.
Yeah, Aman.
Sure.
Yeah,
I'll
I
be
mean,
back in 5
Yeah.
minutes.
Okay. Yeah, definitely, Majid. Not an issue. Yeah. So Aman, can you just clear up a few doubts which these people have?
yeah, I'll try to. Devansh is also here, so he can also help.
Yeah. Anybody who knows Flutter can clear the doubts. So yeah. So you can start off. Yeah. Whoever was just asking his doubt, can you please repeat it? Like you can speak.
Can you please explain the positional parameters one more
Okay,
time?
wait.
Is the previous doubt going on, or can I ask?
Just a second. I think Aman will just clear the doubt in a minute. I think he's trying to present his screen.
Okay, okay.
Aman?
Yeah, wait. I'm having some issues. Wait. Yeah, okay. What did you not get in positional parameters? Like specify what did you not get? What did you not understand in that part? Hello?
I think he just. I think that. Hello? The person who asked about the positional parameters. Okay, I think you can continue the next doubt if anybody else has any doubt.
Yeah, I couldn't quite understand the try, catch, and finally. So try identifies an error, catch rectifies it, and what does finally do? Am I?
Finally, yeah, you're audible. Wait. Okay. So for try, it just catches an error. It just tries to do that. Okay. catch will catch the error if the error happens in the try block. You got that point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And finally is like that will happen, like that part of code will run. Okay, it doesn't matter if the if there is an error in the try block or it's not there, it will happen. You got my point?
Yeah, I got it. Thanks.
I'm back. So, anyone has any question before I start?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Majid.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I think it was an
Okay.
error in
So,
my
any question that I can clarify before we jump into the next session?
I think there is a question from okay. I don't know. It says I don't think so. There is any error exactly, but there's one thing it says it'd be great if you explained class defined data types in short.
Class as a type?
I'm not sure.
That is a question?
No, the question just says it'd be great if you explain class defined data types in short. If you check the chat box.
Yeah, it's an class, explain class defined data type. Well, I don't understand, but I think you mean that, oh yeah. So, well, if you want to get access to the, okay, let me just explain it this way. When, let me just close my, when you have a class, in order to get access to the property of the class, like name, as you saw, and for example, and method that you define, you cannot just say class user with a U capital and then dot something, because that class is just an object of the class that is not instantiated. So it's not being used. In order to use that, in JavaScript, TypeScript, or maybe Python, you have new function, right? I can write it in chat, like new user. Is this familiar?
Yes.
If it's familiar, then in Dart, you don't need that new. You don't use it. But then you need, when you want to instantiate this class to use it, then you need to just call that class similar to function. That's what you have to do. And when you do that, then of course you have access to all the properties and things because you created an instance. And if you create several instances, so you are creating different instances. They don't leak. They don't do anything with each other. They are completely separate. So if you change something in one of them, the other just work as they should. So that's why we call them instance of them. All right, now exciting parts. Flutter. Let's get started. Actually, all of the things that we just said, maybe it seems a little bit boring, but when we go to this session, this part of this class right now, you'll see why I told you about all of those things that I just explained in 1 hour ago or 1.5 hours ago. I think it's worth it to spend some time on that. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. And you see exciting stuff here now. Share desktop 1. Let me also open this chat because I want to see your comments here. Fantastic. All right, this is Flutter, but then before that, let's have a few presentation. Just 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes. Okay, Flutter architecture. Do you want to know it now? No, don't worry about it. Just skip it, right? It doesn't matter. When you work after a month, you'll see how it works behind the scenes. But when you come to Flutter, everyone is going to tell you, also, I will tell you right now, everything is a widget. And a widget is a class, which is going to extend another class. What is extend? You didn't tell me about extend. Bear with me, I'll show you. So you have widgets. Everything is a widget for whatever you want to create. Let's have a look. If you want to just create this UI right now, I just have some quick example for you. The text is a widget. An icon for a star is a widget. A number 41 is a widget. The whole container is a widget. A row for all of them is a widget. So everything is a widget. These are like piece of puzzle. When you are actually combining this piece of puzzle, you get your app. And we're gonna actually do it together right now. You learn the basics of Flutter widgets today, and tomorrow you're gonna create a beautiful app. So before that, you need to know two things. In Flutter, we have two types of widgets. Either it's a stateless widget, that's the name of class, or it's a stateful widget. Stateless means it doesn't have a state. It just render or build, sorry. It just render or builds what you tell it to the widget to do. It doesn't matter. It just built that. But stateful means it reacts to something out from outside and then do continuously rendering. For instance, if you have a scroll, when you scroll, the state is changing because the scroll from one position is going to another position. So then stuff is going to change. So this is a state. Or when you have animation. But when you have a text and it's just a text, it's just a stateless. But if you have maybe a button that it clicks and then a text is changing, this is a stateful. You see that what is a state right now, all right? So I don't think I want to show you a slide anymore. I feel like we have to go here. Can you tell me if this editor with black and the size is okay? If it's not, I can also show you light. And you tell me light is better or dark is better. So, we have, all right. Dark is good. Let's go for that. All right, I understand. No worries. Here we go. That is dark for you. Never choose light. All right, sure. Let's go for dark. Yes, that's night all. All right, so this is my editor and this is my simulator. And hopefully you already opened them right now because you are supposed to install Dart and Flutter. And then I'll tell you how to run your application. A quick overview to Flutter. First of all, how you can create a project. First of all, when you have, I'm going to open my editor here, my terminal quickly. When you have a Flutter command line as an install, then you have Flutter in your terminal. So with a couple of commands like create, you can go ahead and create a Flutter project. And that's simple. And that's it. Like literally that's it. I did the same thing. And when you want to run it, you can just say run with something. For instance, run, I need to first know which devices I have. So then these are the devices I have already in my machine. I can say Flutter space devices, and it gives me all the devices available. So I can run Flutter run dash D, D means which device, and I can say Android, blah, 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 for instance. That's one way of doing that. But another way of doing that, if you are using your editor, like in my case, I'm using VS Code, and in my editor, I have this button here, run. I can click on run function. And if you don't have anything here, you can create one for Dart and Flutter, and then click on that. That's simple again. And it gives you this nav bar here, which you can restart hard if you want, or it has hot reload. I'll show you what is hot reload. Maybe this is the best part of Flutter. So, and that's it. Just click on this and it's going to be run. But before that, you need to select your device. And before selecting your device, you need to open your simulator. To do that, if you have a VS Code, you just go to your list of preferences or commands and just search for select device, you see, and select the devices that you have here. And because I created several, simulator, and I'm expecting you already have done that, so you can select your simulator. In this case, I chose Android Pixel with API 29. Don't worry about API. You can go with 29 API as well if you are creating that. And then I'm running that in this Pixel. And this is my application. And I just run it. I run my simulator, I select my device, and I just run it. And the basic after you create your function is done. If you haven't done that, if you haven't created any project and you want to follow me with all the sample codes, I have already created an example here. I'm going to post it here. This is a repo for this workshop today and tomorrow. So whatever I tell you, I will push it to this repo and you will get it. Or there are already some branches that you can actually check out and see what we are going to do. I haven't pushed the app that we are going to do tomorrow because that's the surprise for you. But the rest from now, whatever I write here, I just commit and push there, right? For Flutter create, one more tips is that you need to say Flutter create and the name of folder. And then you need to, then you can create that. So, but don't worry about Flutter create. You just clone my repo and use master. A branch, and go ahead and continue with me. So I push everything to a different branch, and then later you can check out this part, 03/ this branch, essential widgets, and then you can see whatever we discuss, and we are talking right now. So let's very quickly check out the anatomy of the Flutter. So Flutter comes with several folders: Android folder, iOS folder, lib folder, test folder. You can do Android Studio, you can do IntelliJ, you can do whatever. And meanwhile, if you don't have none of them, I already opened CodePen. You go to codepen.io, you open this pen, click on Flutter pen, and you're going to have the same thing here. But you don't have my code, of course, here, but you can copy and paste here, and you'll see the result here. So don't worry if you don't have the editor set up right now, or if you don't have a simulator. Please go to CodePen, open a Flutter pen, be ready over there, and then once I push everything, you just go ahead and copy paste it here exactly, and then you see it here. No worries. But I'm going to continue in editor because I want to show you a couple of things that you need to learn in editor. I pasted the repo in the chat. Please pay attention to that. Oh, it says privately for some reason. I am so sorry. everyone. Yeah, I am so sorry. I was continuously sending to one person. Here we go. Here is the link to the repo. Go ahead and check it out, and you'll be fine. So hopefully you can you get everything that I explained right now. Should I paste one more time? Does everyone see the repo? I think it does.
Yeah, now it's visible for everyone.
Yes, it's in the comment. Let's move on. So the anatomy, Android, iOS. Initially, we're talking about Android and iOS. We're talking about these two platforms, but you're not limited to that. You have web, you have Windows, Linux, Mac. Don't worry about them. But we're going to talk about iOS and Android, not specifically about iOS and Android, but just about Flutter, because Flutter is going to create the same thing that you are doing for iOS and Android cross-platform for both of them. I'll show you. No worries, you'll learn that. So we're going to have lib folder, which is the main folder for our application. And it has main.dart as a name of the file. And here is where you start. Here is where you start. And we start today together from here. All right. Very good. You also have pub/spec YAML file. If you are a programmer, you know that you have dependency managements like npm or in Python pip or things like that. So this is similar. So here is where you define a couple of metadata and including the dependencies. Where can you get the dependency? Where can you get the dependency for the application? You have one resource and it's pub.dev. This is the dependency management for Dart and Flutter. So technically, everything you get from here, you go here and use it. Like if you need any widget, then you can search and find everything here. And then you have this YAML file. It's not JSON, but similar. So it's a YAML file, so you need to be careful about indentation and things like that. But if you have an editor with, auto format, then don't worry about it. So you define your stuff here. For instance, if I want block, that's just a library. I can say block and things like that. But do you need to remember remember everything? Of course not. You just go ahead here, go to the library. I click on that. Go to installing and just copy this, come back here. And that's it. And that's it. And then you see that Flutter pub get is running. That's a command. My editor is doing that automatically, or you should do that like Flutter pub get. That's the same thing. And it's going to download everything for you. And then you have this library. So I'm gonna delete that, but we will come back to that later. The difference between dependencies and dev dependencies perhaps is clear, but I'll explain shortly. So in dependency, these are the libraries that you want to actually include to your bundle and your application later, but the dev dependency are for development. So you exclude them from the final production ready app. And the rest of the property in YAML file, are they now important to know? Well, no. Let's skip that, but you learn it within, after this workshop, when you work more, you learn more about it. Only thing is important is the Flutter part of it, which is going to be explained tomorrow. No worries about that. Let's move on. I said that you have main.dart. Here is where you write your dot, and you need only this for now. You go ahead and open main.dart. Let's now have an explanation about this file, and probably the syntax are that for now it must be familiar with you. Let's start from top. If I just do that, what you see here, main function, and it runs run function from this library and my application. My application is a class, which is inheriting something from stateless widget. The extend method, now I can explain to you. The extend method says that everything that this widget has, this class also need to inherit. Let me open this widget. If it has like whatever you see here, all of this, like build method, you go ahead and use that as well. And override annotation here means this is already existed on this, but I want to override it. I don't want to use that. I want to use this instead. But I know there is such a thing. If I go now to stateless, you see this is a class, or it's an abstract class. I will explain that later. And then you have a build method here. And this is going to be this class. It has build method, but you're overwriting. So it means that don't worry about the main one in the stateless widget. Use the one that I have. And you see this pattern in every widget that you are going to create. Every single one, you see this pattern. So you're gonna actually now understand this, right? So you have a class, my app, you inherited some properties from this instead of defining here. And then you override one of those method build, and then you return something that you want. And what you are returning is a widget. And widget, again, it's a class. It's an abstract class, actually, but don't worry about it again. Right? So the syntax must be familiar, right? The class we learned, extend we just learned, override we just learned, and widget before method means it's returning widgets. It's a type of return. And this type is for this parameters, right? A context parameter is built context. And the good thing about editor is that when you click on these classes, you go and read the documentation. You see what are these, what type of things they have. All right, let's go back again from top to digest it a bit. I have now imported Flutter material theme. I said that Flutter gives you a lot of UI widgets. And the main package for Flutter to create these themes is material app. Material, are you familiar with material design? I bet you are. You are using Google and many other applications that they are using material design. So material app and material design in Flutter is the main one. It's not that only one, but it's the main one of the most important ones. And you have a lot of widgets, material design widgets with that package. So what I am saying right now, and that is the only main method in Flutter you see. Yeah, because you want to actually tell Dart to start something, to run your function. You just say, hey, main. That's the only one. And then this is you see, this is a function from this package. And I pass my app. That's it. And when I run it, I get this app. And what is doing right now? The syntax, you see, again, I'm emphasizing. Now you see that, okay, material app is a class. Oh, and then this is a named parameter. So the title for that must be this, tem must be this, and home must be this. And I can explain now these parameters. So because the syntax is familiar. So the material app has several different properties. You, as a Flutter developer, I can tell you you are officially a Flutter developer from now. You need to learn how to read documentation of Flutter. One of the most important one is to use your editor to inspect these classes. When you click on these classes, you go to the details and you read everything here, which you are going to read also in api.flutter.com.dev. So, and hey, isn't it familiar right now? The material, the name of class is also here, and it's using this curly brackets. And these are, whoa, these are this, and I have, isn't it like named parameters? The only difference is that some of these name parameters, like this one, has a default value. Now you learn a new things. This is going to be a named, which is going to be defined somewhere down here. And when you want to assign a default value, because if you don't assign anything, it will be null, right? You saw that. But when you want to assign a default value, you just say equal to something, and that's going to be default. Simple. Okay, let's go back. So the basic things that you need for your material perhaps is, I think, only just homepage. That's it. You just need to say, this is my material app. It's going to use material widgets. So I start from material. So you see that this is my main class. This is my main widget. Remember, you in each class which is inheriting a stateless or a stateful widget, you need to have a build method to return a widget, and everything is a widget. So here is where you say to Flutter to create a trees of widgets, or parent, child, parent, child, parent, child, you know, this tree. In this case, you can create your application. Let's now start here. So I can remove this. When I click on T, my editor is telling me there are some possibilities here. This is a good thing about named parameters. I have title, temp mode, dark mode, high, blah, 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 blah. These are starting, or at least has T. I can say, no, I want title as a parameter. I want to pass a title here. Flutter workshop. Okay, that's the title of my app. It doesn't do anything at the moment. And then I define my theme. I want to say that, okay, you know, the theme, learn this right now, because you're going to see this quite a lot. When I go to the theme, it says two things that you know one of them, you don't know the another. It says theme data. Theme data is a class. It just says class, right? So it defines something. So you just need to, when you use theme, you need to use theme class here. You cannot just write something else. It must be theme class. So I'm teaching you right now a very important tips. You don't need to learn anything, remember anything. You just need to go to this definition and then use that. And there is explanation. Simple. And that's it. I'm teaching you how to fish, actually. So when you learn that, then the rest is easy. So you can do the same for this one. What is this? It says, oh, this must be material color. And what is material color? Is a color switch. Okay, then I can say colors.blue, or maybe I can say color dot. There are some predefined colors. You can use colors class in, and then use anything here. Like I want to go for, let's say, pink. All right, so, and the same goes for other properties. And now go to the main one, because this is going to say when I open up the app, it must be a home page. We still don't have routing, but we have a home page. We start from there. We create our home page class, another class here. See, again, it's simple. Now I'm going to explain final, finally, because you're going to see final quite a lot and you're going to use it quite a lot. What is final? Final simply tells that this variable is immutable. You cannot change it. If you assign something to that, you cannot change it. It's immutable, and that's it. It's similar to const, let's say, in or let in JavaScript. And you will see another one. Technically, remember you asked me var is probably useless. Well, I think so. Maybe it's not useless, but I haven't used that because the good practice is that as much as you can, you create immutable data structure. So you use final instead of var, or instead of dynamic, use just string, because it helps compiler to optimize as much as possible. So that helps. So therefore, you say here now to class, now I'm going to pass a title. What is this? Here you go. It's the same thing I told you in 30 minutes ago. Named again, and it's going to be a string, and it's immutable, final. And you use this immutable everywhere. So, and then you have a build method. You have a build method on every stateless stateful widget. Build method simply render everything on the screen. And the build method right now has two widgets. Container, the first thing you want to learn today. And the second thing, text. And it's rendering title. And what is the title? Flutter demo home page. If I say home page 1, you see it immediately. And that is the beauty of hot reload from Flutter. I just change it here. I just remove, it will be removed. But why it's like so ugly? Then let's go through that. I'll explain one by one a few widgets that are very important. So far, let me know if you have any question or any doubt and you don't understand anything from these two widgets. I give you 15 more seconds. Let me know if you don't understand any of these things that I explained right now. Time's out. Render means loading. Yeah, render means painting, loading, yes. How are we getting this code for widget? I'm not sure what you mean, but I push this to this repository if you mean that. The return material part, could you explain? Yes. So the main entry point of your application must be a theme or like an app is built in Flutter. And because Flutter has a lot of built-in widgets, let's say UI widgets, you need to use an app for that. And one of the apps that, a widget app for that. Now, one of them is Material app. Material app is the one that gives you all the widget that you are going to use, and it's materialized. It's material design from Google. Then you can extend that as much as possible, as much as possible. So you get that material design out of the box, and I'll show you in 5 minutes. But then you can customize it quite a lot. What is exactly we are doing? How can you switch built-in function use where? How to know which built-in function use where? Okay. That's good. How to know which built-in function? So first of all, functionality, I corrected, and widgets, I corrected in this way. So you see the basics right now. This is a very first entry of a Flutter application. And you see that. And this is the syntax that you learned like an hour ago. The same thing. I'm trying to tell you that you don't, from now on, you just need to learn the widgets and how you code in Flutter. But the syntax are the things that you learned in an hour ago, and you play with that. Let's move on and do that. So you start from material, and you create your widget. So 2 widgets I have. My main app, which is going to run this application, and it's just running material app. And my first widget in the screen, which is my page. And you see that it just render a text right now, Flutter demo homepage, right? We're gonna actually to change here. From here, you learn basic widgets for Flutter and the fundamental that you need for tomorrow to learn your beautiful application. So let's get started from now. So there is no more question, and I have to say officially you are, from now, really you are a Flutter developer if you don't have any question, because what you see from now, it's just repeating this. I'm just repeating with different names, and that's it. Let's see. So you see that I have container. Container is a widget. I'm gonna start with container. What is a container? So container is technically, as its name says, it's sorry, just a very convenient widget that you can do a lot of common painting and sizing to this widget. And remember, most of the widgets, like maybe 95% of the widget, has one at least parameters, which is child, because you are going to create these childs. Let me just do this quickly. So if I show you here right now, you have container, and that has a child. So if you go to container, if I go to container, I see that container has these properties or parameters. For instance, one thing that I can do is what? Padding. I can give a padding, right? I can give a padding to container. So I can come here and I say padding, and a padding has a very special class. It's edge inset. So I'm gonna use that here then. See edge inset. And then I say dot, and I wanna actually give a padding to all around, top, bottom, left, right. And I use all, and I now pass a value. And what is the value? I'm telling you right now, learn this. If you don't know, click and see. I can pass what? You see here, I can pass a double, and you learn double. I can pass 20 like that. Now I have a padding. It's a little bit messed up. How I can fix that? So when you start with an application, you don't directly start with a container, the main widget of the screen. You need to use scaffold widget. Learn about the scaffold right now. What is a scaffold? A scaffold widget is a widget that actually gives a basic theme of material, for instance, because I'm using material app, to this application. So let's say scaffold here, in this case, if I do that, now I have the basic design, basic of the layouting and everything from material to this application. And I told you that basic, okay, if you don't know what you have to do, now you know the scaffold. It's just a scaffolding your application, right? It's just like a big structure. It gives a structure to your application and team. So I go there and see, wow, it has too many things. But what you need to learn for today is scaffold has a property called body. And body means now I scaffold my application. I want to render something here. Now I paste the container things. Here we go. What do you see right now? You see a text and it's scaffold, but it has a little bit overlay over there, right? It's on top and it doesn't have padding. Maybe I can give more padding here, for instance. If I say 50, yes. So 50 is giving a padding to container, and container has one child. Therefore, then that child, what is that? It's a text widget, and it accepts title and string. And then it renders that text inside this container. So now you have 3 widgets: scaffold, container, and text. And this is the hierarchy. So text parent is container, and container parent is scaffold. And then, all right, so let's learn more about layouting. So, any questions so far about these 3? No. Okay, good. So if I move on to this example, which I prepared, look at this design. Let's imagine that you want to create this design in Flutter. What do you see? I want you to learn this way of thinking right now. When you see a layout and you want to implement, you need to analyze it. Okay, I see a row, and that row has 2 columns, and one column has, again, 1 row, another row, another row, another row. And in the first row, I have 1 text. I'm speaking English, right? But what I say right now is the name of widgets. If you learn how to analyze, you actually are learning how to code Flutter. Let's do that. I want to actually create a row with 2 columns. Let's do that. In container, I go ahead and say row. And row, you know, when I say row, it can have several thing or column, right? Then I have a children instead of child. Here we go. And what is children? It's a list. Now you can pass 2 text here. You need to pass 2 widgets. And let me just do this to make it, yeah. What do you see now? 2 Flutter. I just changed the title to Flutter. What do you see now? 2 Flutter. But now in the first column, I have now 1 row, right? That is 1 row, you see? And I have 2 widget, which is going to be in 2 column. But I want in the first column to create a column instead. So it says, someone is saying how to hot reload. Well, when you start the app with your editor, just click on this I mentioned. This icon, it says hot reload. Or if you're using from command line, hit Shift R, and then you get hot reload. Okay, and the title doesn't do at the moment anything, but let's move on. I'll explain what it does later. So now what if I want to create, like in the first column, I want to create a column that has several rows. Then I'll remove this and I say column. Simple. So you're learning another widget, column. And what does column do? So column again has children, and it can have several children. And now look at the design. Now I have 2 columns. To the first one row, the first one has 3 children, and the second one in this row is that Flutter, single Flutter, right? Let's go back to anatomy. So here is where you can your layouting. You learn right now the most important layouting part of Flutter, the row and column. You learn text, you learn container. These are very, very important. So if you know them very well, you know maybe by now you know 30% of layouting. So most of the time you use this layouting, row, column, row, column. And now you know what is row, how you can assign children, what is column, how we can assign children. Let's go back to this design to make it a little bit more precise. So this is a column and it has several rows, and each row again can have column and rows. So here is where you create, as I said, these trees, this widget of trees of widgets. So what if now I want to go ahead and have, let's say, a list. So this is also another important widget that you need to learn. So I'm going to actually have a list. First, let me create a list. I want to create a list here, final list of a string and names. And I want to just say Majid, and one of your name maybe the last person I need. Right. Okay. So I just defined this, and I said this is immutable. You cannot change this names. Okay. So I want to create a list. A list gives you an ability to render a list automatically, and you scroll them. All right. Very good. So now you need to learn the list builder. All right. Let me answer this. Okay. So what you can do, you have, let me say that here in this, I want to go ahead and create another here column. This is the third column in the row. And then I have children. Very good. And then in my children, then what I want to do instead of this children, now I can technically create a list. So maybe that's one option. Another option is that instead of this column to render this child, I can go ahead and use another widget. Now this is one thing that you're learning again, list view. So you have now list view, and then you can have children, and then children can have different, like, let's say, widgets, right? Another option is that instead of doing this, let me just remove that. Learn this right now, because you want to use this tomorrow. Yes, I explain. Someone asked when to use comma and when to use semicolon. Semicolon is when you end something. Comma is, you are now in an array. You cannot end anything here, right? Because by separating with comma, you just go ahead and create your members. This is, again, a list here. You see, it's highlighting. And then it's, again, I'm using comma. So, but here at the end, it's actually this class, and it's done. So I'm just ending that with comma. See? So let's list view. I'm going to create this list automatically. List view has a method, builder method, which now you see an error because I need to do something here. So here is let me just quickly explain what I have done. And item count, name.length. All right, let me explain what I'm doing right now. I'm going to create a list view, and I'm going to say that build it, please, for me dynamically, because I have a list here. I don't want to actually go ahead and say, hey, the index 0 is this index, because I don't know. I just want to iterate with for loop and then render that, right? So here I go ahead and say, builder, please go ahead and do that. And in builder is a function. So a function that has two argument, context and index. Index gives you the index of the array you are passing. And in builder, you have also item counts. You tell how many times you want to do that. And that's the length of your array. You're learning again a new thing here. In an array, if you just call lengths, you get the lengths, the quantity of those members. So in this case, I get 2. So here we go. In my builder, then I want to return maybe a list tile. All right, you learn a new thing again. List tile. It's just creating a tile for you. Let me just quickly add a title here, and then I use text, and I use, okay, names, index. You see now my point, why I am doing that. Instead of going ahead and doing that manually, now I am doing that programmatically. So I'm going to tell this, let me just also maybe, I want to quickly comment this. Instead of going to like doing this indexing here one by one, I use builder, and builder goes and iterate with the number of your members, and then I return a widget, which is something that I want to render on the website, and say that, okay, render a text. I can actually also use text here, by the way, no problem whatsoever. So don't think that you cannot do that. You can do that. So let me just quickly reload it. And maybe go ahead and do this here. I just don't wanna mess up with anything else. Okay. So now you see that I have 2 name here. And if I have more, then I can actually scroll and see the more item here. So, but why I'm using actually this tile, because it has also some other stuff. For instance, here in here, I can say my subtitle can be name. And you see that under that it says name. I can go ahead and do something else. I can add a style, or I can add maybe, I can add actually a style to the widget, by the way. Let's to the text widget. I can add in a style, and then a style gets text style, and text style is again a class that has all these stuff. What if I say colors dot amber, and it changes? Isn't it easy? You learned a couple of examples right now with different widgets, which tomorrow we're going to use only this to create a very beautiful app as the same thing that I showed you. And tomorrow is we are only going through these widgets. most important widgets that you need to know. You need to know container, you now know. You don't know all the property of that, but I taught you how to go and learn about it. So tomorrow or today, or tomorrow morning, your task is to go through these widgets, try out some of the other properties and figure out how you can add other properties to that and what they are doing. So I'm gonna copy that here once more. Let's have this. Sorry. Quickly revert column and rows. Yes. So go ahead and do and learn more about styling here. So I teach you right now, it can have a style and a style. How I know I can, that's the question right now. How I know that actually style can have a style class? Well, I taught you. I said if you do that, you click on this and you see that, oh, it says this is a text style. So then I can use text style here. Okay, I can do text style. And then here in text style, I want to go and use, sorry, text style. I'm going to go and use, I don't know what to use. Okay, no problem. Just click on that and see what it has. Oh, it has font weight, size, font style. All right, let me explore. Maybe font size. Okay, let's go for font size. All right. And now what I can do for font size, I don't know. Okay, doesn't matter. Just go here. I can pass it double. I know double. Let's go and do that. And it's getting very tiny. But what if I say 40? Then it's getting so big. Isn't it easy? Just tell me if it's not easy. And if it's easy, just show me your excitement. Because we're going to end this session today. You learned, yeah, well, very, very good question. Someone asked, are there things like rem here? In Flutter, forget about everything you know about CSS, those, it's nothing like that. Just forget about it. No special things. Everything is in Dart. You write it here, and if it tells you, you write number, you write number. If it says double, you write double. And if it says something else, it will tell you in documentation. And also, the sizing, let's say, rem, em, or those kind of things doesn't work in mobile. In mobile, it's a bit different. So I don't feel I have to explain it now because I confuse you. What I can tell you is that you have a design, you want to design it, and you want to see it in this mobile screen. And you see if it's okay or not, at least for now as a beginner. Once you go ahead and move forward, then you know how to get those variables from design and then have the exact number in the Flutter app as well. But don't worry about it right now. It's important you to get right now comfortable with Flutter. Once you're comfortable with Flutter, then you are good to go. You can do whatever else you want for advanced stuff. But let's not let's not get confused right now with this stuff. So, and before we go, let me just create another widget here. How I can create a widget? I want to create another widget. Okay, I want to go ahead. Help me, class. Let's call it new widget. And I have to extend. What do you want to extend? Do you remember? Just help me. Don't be shy. Write it in the chat. So state less widget. I want to state less widget. And then, okay, what I want to do, I have to have a build method. And my editor is telling me, oh, there is a build method here. I can actually select. I don't need to write anything else. I select, and it just select everything. That's fantastic. So I need to remove this because I want to implement something here. All right. So I can return a widget. All right. What I want to what is this widget? Is it going to be a screen, or is it going to be a widget inside a screen? It's going to be a widget inside the screen. Let's actually use the list view that I defined, and I'm just going to move this to here. All right. So now I created another widget. How I can use that? Simple. Just go ahead here. I go ahead, copy that, use new widgets. And what it does, it just switches to that one. Simple. Actually, I copied something here right now. Let's create another widget. Let's create another widget here. Okay. I want to create another widget that has that widget. Okay, let's go do that. A new class, let's say amazing widget extend stateless widget, and then okay, override. Okay, I don't remember syntax. What should I do? Well, again, if you don't remember, go to the documentation here and read it. As long as you know you need a build method, it's enough for you. You need to know this. The rest, you can go and search it and learn it from that documentation. But let's do that. So now I have a build, and my editor is telling, okay, you can do that. Here you go. I need to return something. Well, I need to return a widget. I'm going to return actually everything that I copied from top. Oh, there is something dynamic here. All right, doesn't matter. I can do that. I can create a constructor, same as my widget. Do you want it positional or named or none of them? Tell me in chat right now. Named or non-named? Okay, let's go for name. This dot title. But then I need to define title, and I want it immutable. Okay, then final string title. Here you go. Then now I can use this amazing widget instead of this. Okay, let me just comment this. Do that. And oh, I need to pass title, and I can pass this title. Here you go. Then I can use that widget. One last thing before we go. So let me tell you, because it's exciting. What if we have is dark or whatever, and it's true? Final Boolean. Sorry, Boolean. Can I, oh, sorry. Can I say if that, else that? Yes, you can do that. Let's render this widget with condition. I want to say if dark, this, and if not, this. Okay, what is this? You didn't tell us about this. We just know if. We don't know this. This is what we call it ternary operator. One quick tip for you in Flutter, you're going to use this quite a lot. If it's dark, this, if not that. Let's see if it works. If I say false, it goes there. If I say true, it goes there. Isn't it beautiful? But then what is ternary? Let's quickly review ternary operator. So it says a condition, question mark, what is true? And if not true, what is false? That's it. That's what you have here. If that is true, this, if not, that. And you're going to use that quite a lot tomorrow. And I'm going to show you tomorrow how to change this with a stateless widget. And once you change that, how it will react. Good. We went through a couple of stuff which are very important. Believe me, these are the fundamental of our app tomorrow. We're going to work with more widgets tomorrow for sure, but these widgets are one of the most important ones that you need to know to start. And tonight and tomorrow morning, you just need to go and run your app, clone this repo, and play with it. And you see how much stuff you can create only with these widgets, because they have quite a lot of properties and arguments. So don't be shy, go and try it out. I'm gonna actually right now, before we forget, gonna commit this. Let's say my first widgets, and let's push it to this right now. Now, if you clone, you have a branch. You can go to the branch, check it out, and then you have the code that we have. Then please go ahead and do more. And maybe tomorrow, first 10 minutes, we can have the beautiful things that you can create only with these widgets, and you can show it to the class. For now, if you have any question, please shout out. If not, let's end our session. It's already too many things that you need to go and give it a try. Unfortunately, we don't have time right now. I give you to try it out and ask me question, but I promise you can go ahead and try it out and write your question. And tomorrow, the first maybe 30 minutes in the beginning, I'll answer all the question and I'll visit all the apps that you're creating. And then we go ahead and create our beautiful application that we're going to do it together. Any question for now?
I don't.
You're getting shy, or it's too boring?
I think people are a bit tired. They're weared out.
Yeah, I think they're tired. It's close to the midnight, right?
Yep, it's 11 here in India. It's like almost close to midnight, an hour more. Yes, it wasn't boring at all. That's good to
Okay.
know.
I'm very glad that many of you, well, I don't know if many of you are maybe satisfied yet, but tomorrow you'll be satisfied more, because these are the basic, and always learning basics are maybe boring or sometimes overwhelming because it's new, right? But I promise tomorrow you'll hands on your application, and then you see that how easy you are learning everything and how easy you are becoming a Flutter developer by end of tomorrow. And maybe you get a job within a week or two. Who knows? Tell me later if you got a job. Thank you very much. I think I don't know what's the plan, Neil. So can you explain what we should do?
Just stop. For now, just stop sharing your screen. I just want to take a small screenshot of all the participants that have come in. Whoever can just please like quickly, turn on your cams, and also Suryansh, you can end the session.
Okay, so thank you so much, sir. It was great learning venture for day one to begin with. Hope we were able to stand up to everyone's expectation of this workshop. It was great to host each one of you, and with the hope to see the same enthusiasm tomorrow. We would like to sign off for the day. Any further doubts and queries shall be taken up in the WhatsApp group. Good night. Thank you.
Before we end it, we'll wait for another minute to, for everybody to turn on their cams so that we can take a nice screenshot so that we can, post it out on our social media and tell people. Anybody?
Oh, yes. Let's smile. Cheese. Everyone.
Yes, let's all smile. Yes, I've taken the screenshots. So we'll break for now, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow. Yeah. Okay.
See ya
Thanks
tomorrow.
a lot. Yes, thanks a lot, Majid, and
Bye.
we'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.